very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight on Gravitas. A major allegation by a former U.S. National Security Advisor has triggered a series of serious questions. In an interview, he has claimed that Donald Trump shifted U.S. policy against India because of his family's business interests in Pakistan. We're telling you more about this and getting you the bigger picture. That's coming up in just a bit. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. How are the world's fastest growing economies responding to Trump's trade war? What's happening behind the scenes? We focus on the BRICS grouping. India's Commerce and Industry Minister has said India is in dialogue with the United States for a bilateral trade agreement. We tell you more, all this and lots more coming up. A major allegation by former U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan is raising questions about the credibility of America's foreign policy as well as the personal interests of Donald Trump. In a recent interview, Sullivan alleged that Trump shifted U.S. policy against India because of his family's business interests with Pakistan, a claim that has ignited the debate over whether Washington's long-term strategic partnership with New Delhi may have been compromised. Sullivan stated that Pakistan's willingness to strike business deals with the Trump family prompted the US president to sideline India. He warned that undermining the US-India relationship causes direct strategic damage since that partnership remains central to American interests in the Indo-Pacific. His comments come at a time when tensions between Washington and New Delhi remain. In fact, the United States recently imposed a 50% tariff, including a 25% penalty, as a punishment for India's purchase of Russian oil, a decision that puzzled many analysts, especially given that America's trade deficit with India is relatively small. And at the heart of Sullivan's accusation lies a new business venture, reportedly. The Trump family has taken a significant stake in World Liberty Financial, reportedly, a cryptocurrency platform. Public disclosures reveal that Trump and his sons hold substantial stake in the company, reportedly, which has tilted the family's wealth away from real estate and into digital finance. And this is where things get interesting, because World Liberty Financial recently signed a series of deals with the newly formed Pakistan Crypto Council, and the partnership signals deeper financial cooperation between the Trump family and Islamabad. And the timing of these deals is also leaving behind question marks. India, America's 10th largest trading partner, faces one of the steepest tariff rates on any country. Pakistan, by contrast, pays a relatively modest tariff of 19%. And this imbalance has fueled speculation that Trump's personal financial ties are shaping official US trade policy? So that's the question being raised. In fact, critics accusing Trump of throwing away years of diplomatic efforts to strengthen the US-India partnership, a cornerstone of American strategy to counter China. Sullivan described the policy pivot as a major strategic setback, warning that it could weaken America's credibility with allies across the region. For years now, US-Pakistan ties remained stagnant in a way under both Trump's first term and then US President Donald Trump as Washington prioritized India. Trump's second term has seen a dramatic improvement in relations with Islamabad, the convergence of business deals and softer diplomatic policies, now fueling suspicion that something deeper is driving this change. The allegation that Pakistan effectively bribed Trump through business arrangements, posing serious questions about how personal interests could be reshaping America's foreign policy and its diplomatic ties, with America's president at the center of all of that. The world's fastest growing economies are mobilizing to respond to Donald Trump's trade war. Brazil, which currently chairs the BRICS bloc, is pushing its partners into an urgent virtual meeting next week to discuss the sweeping tariffs imposed by the United States. According to a Bloomberg report, the Brazilian president quietly called for the meeting. According to it, the aim is to address Trump's tariffs head-on and to rally support for multilateralism among the world's major emerging economies. It is important to note here that the call has not yet been officially announced. Remember, over the last 2 decades, BRICS has grown from an acronym into a political force, positioning itself as a counterweight to Western influence in global institutions. Expansions in 2023 and 2024 swelled the group to 11 members, amplifying its global heft, even as divisions remain over issues like Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Now, under Brazil's 2025 leadership, the bloc is trying to sharpen cooperation across the global south. Trump thrust Brazil into the center of his global trade war in July, threatening higher tariffs unless the country's Supreme Court halted the trial of the former President Bolsonaro on coup attempt charges. And when Brazil refused, Washington slapped a 50% tariff on Latin America's largest economy, reportedly. Airplanes and orange juice were exempted, but most sectors were not. And it's not just Brazil. The United States has leveled different tariffs against different BRICS members, making unity harder, but also giving the bloc a shared sense of urgency. Unity was the message sent out from the SCO summit in Tianjin, where the Indian Prime Minister, the Russian President, and the Chinese President stood together, handshakes, hugs, a clear signal that BRICS is central to shaping a multipolar world. And in the past, Trump has not been silent on his views on BRICS. Facing BRICS' rising influence, Donald Trump has dismissed the bloc as a quote-unquote little group. He says BRICS is trying to undermine the dollar. He has portrayed BRICS as a bloc that is anti-American and warned that its nations could face retaliatory tariffs. Analysts saying this is more than just rhetoric. But Trump's aggressive stance has pushed emerging economies closer together, perhaps unwittingly, helping BRICS consolidate its role as a strategic challenger to the Western financial order. Still, Bloomberg reporting President Lula does not want next week's meeting to turn into an anti-US summit. The goal, according to the report, is defense, not confrontation. Moreover, just this week, the US revoked the visas of the Brazilian Supreme Court justices and sanctioned the judge overseeing Bolsonaro's case. And so for Lula, the timing is critical. Bolsonaro's trial opens Tuesday, which could turn into a flashpoint, which the Brazilian officials fear Trump will take advantage of. The virtual BRICS talks will also follow a weekend of high-level diplomacy in China, in fact. President Xi Jinping hosted SCO leaders, including Prime Minister Modi and President Putin in Tianjin, before holding bilateral talks with Putin in Beijing. Within BRICS, Prime Minister Modi has often been seen as Trump's closest partner. But after Trump turned his fire on India, imposing harsh 50% tariffs, trust in Washington seems to be eroding fast. And that shift clears the way for a more substantive BRICS resolution this time. And so at stake is a lot more than trade. The question also is, how can BRICS push back, if at all, against Washington's economic pressure? And the answer may be beginning to take shape if and when the leaders log in for that virtual meeting.
The US, we are in dialogue with them for a bilateral trade agreement.
Meanwhile, the Indian Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal has said that trade talks with the United States are ongoing despite the friction. Take a listen in.
As we continue to have newer trading arrangements with the European Union, with Chile, Peru, New Zealand, a second tranche of Australia and Oman, all of these are FTAs on the anvil. We already completed Mauritius, Australia's first tranche, the four-nation EFTA bloc, UK, UAE. Lots have happened, lots more to go. But the US, we are in dialogue with them for a bilateral trade agreement.
The Indian minister's comments coming just days after Washington doubled tariffs on some of the Indian goods imported to the United States as a punitive measure over the purchase of Russian oil. The new duty came on top of Trump's earlier 25% tariffs and has driven the total levies as high as 50% on key exports, including garments, gems and jewelry, footwear, sporting goods, furniture, chemicals. And these are now among the highest tariff rates imposed by the United States and on par with Brazil and China. Despite 5 rounds of negotiations, India and America have so far failed to strike a deal that would lower tariffs to around 15%, similar to agreements Washington has reached with Japan, South Korea, the European Union. Despite the tariff tensions, both sides have kept the doors open. President Trump has also said that India offered to cut tariffs. In a social media post on Monday, Trump said that India offered to reduce its tariffs on American goods to zero without saying when the concession was made. And while New Delhi has said talks are still on, the Indian government is yet to officially respond to Trump's specific remarks. There are no formal talks taking place between the trade negotiators at the moment. But New Delhi and Washington have kept informal communication channels open, reportedly. Trump's latest post may signal that the United States also remains open to trade talks, and some see it as an attempt on Trump's part to walk back on his earlier hardened stance on India. The pressure is on Washington. Photos from the SCO summit showing Putin, Modi and Xi Jinping's bonhomie making headlines around the world. In China, Prime Minister Modi and Vladimir Putin spoke for nearly an hour and also inside Putin's limousine. The two leaders are set to continue talks when Putin visits India later this year. And with this display of friendship, Prime Minister Modi has sent out a clear message to Washington, a message that surely must have got the Trump team thinking about its next move on India. Remember, India was among the first to open trade talks with the Trump administration, with the US President and Prime Minister Modi agreeing to seal a bilateral deal by the end of this year. India even went the extra mile, making early concessions, offering to slash tariffs on industrial goods, from auto components to pharmaceuticals, down to zero. But that was conditional, only if the US reciprocated. Alas, Washington did not. Instead, the Trump administration slapped unfair tariffs on India, and here we are. And here's a quick look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. Why is the Pakistan minister calling floods a blessing? We tell you more about what he has said, getting you the complete story. You do not want to miss this. A landslide in Sudan has killed over 1,000 people. We're telling you more about the situation on the ground. Is your AI chatbot lying to you? We tell you what a study says. All this and more coming your way. President Donald Trump called India a quote-unquote dead economy, but the Indian economy grew at a robust annual rate of 7.8% in the June quarter, and that marked the best growth in 5 quarters. The robust performance exceeded both market and central bank forecasts that showcased economic momentum despite global uncertainty. The strong figures came despite mounting external challenges, particularly from the escalating trade tensions with the United States. The impact of these tariffs has not been realized yet in those figures. Analysts caution that they could dampen export earnings, disrupt supply chains, and weigh on the overall growth for the financial year. So the real question is, if Trump is trying to make India a dead economy, India has looked past the tariff troubles and is seeking to diversify its exports to 40 other countries. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit this week showed another dimension to the dynamics at play. Despite the risk posed by US tariffs, most economists and institutions predict India's GDP growth in the range of a healthy 6.3 to 6.8%. India's economy has several buffers that may help it withstand these headwinds. Domestic consumption remains strong. Ongoing fiscal support like GST tax cuts and interest rate cuts also favorable. But as global uncertainties persist, the country's resilience will be tested. Madhavi Arora, an economist at MK Global Financial Services, said, quoting, "The 7.8% growth gave a superlative surprise. Such growth emanates from extremely soft deflator-led technical boost, front-loaded government spending versus last year, front-loaded exports to the US, and some of these factors will reverse ahead," quote-unquote. And she added, quoting further, "Going ahead, the underlying growth story is likely to be muddied by several statistical and external quirks, making it difficult to ascertain growth momentum accurately," quote-unquote. Shifting focus now to Gaza. The Israeli government and the military do not seem to be looking eye to eye, and at the center of this are reportedly disagreements creeping up over the Gaza plan. Speaking at a cabinet meeting called by the Israeli Prime Minister, the chief of the Israel Defense Forces reportedly warned that Israel's plans to conquer Gaza City could lead to full-fledged occupation of the Gaza Strip. In line with his assessment, the IDF Chief General Eyal Zamir reportedly warned of a military rule and pressed for discussion around the ceasefire deal, one which has already been accepted by Hamas, but remains opposed by the Israeli Prime Minister. Not just that, a minister from Netanyahu's own party, David Amsalem, reportedly warned that the planned expansion of the war could turn Gaza into Israel's Vietnam, quote-unquote, thus drawing a link to America's role in the Vietnam War. Refusing to hold a vote on the IDF chief's proposed truce and hostage deals, Netanyahu has said that such a thing was not on the table, reportedly. The Israeli Prime Minister added that US President Donald Trump had pushed him not to accept a partial deal and rather continue the war with Gaza with full force. Hamas, on the other hand, denounced reported Trump's plan to take over, saying that Gaza is not up for sale. The hours-long meeting turned out to be heated, also contentious, creating factions on the Gaza takeover plan and no real solutions in sight as such. And there are huge implications as far as Gaza's future is concerned. Israel's offensive continues in Gaza. Fresh explosions across the Gaza Strip killed over 30 people reportedly, taking the death toll to 63,633 as per the Gaza Health Ministry. Leading scholars have accused Israel of acts including genocide claims which have been rejected by the Israeli government. However, war fatigue seems to be setting in, impacting Israel equally. According to a report by the Wall Street Journal, military commanders have called up 60,000 reservists from their jobs, studies, and families as they are struggling to find enough soldiers willing to report for duty. And the West also has intensified calls for recognition of a Palestinian state. Belgium has now announced its plan to sanction Israel and formally recognize Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly session to be held later this month, joining the ranks of countries like Australia, Britain, Canada, France. And reports suggest Netanyahu seems to be mulling the annexation of parts of the occupied West Bank. Listen to this.
It's a good thing, even if I think it's a bit late given the events. It's been going on for 2 years. Also, with the conditions that are attached, for example, I saw that Hamas would have to be disarmed and all that. So in a way, it's something that could be complicated to implement, and therefore will actually delay the recognition of the Palestinian state. It would have been better with direct recognition without conditions. For me, there you go.
The question is, can Israel settle with winning the Gaza bet but losing its image internationally, as indicated by US President Donald Trump himself? During the French Revolution, the Queen of France infamously told starving peasants who had no bread, let them eat cake. And centuries later, a statement which is being compared to that statement has come in from Pakistan, if the country can even be called a functioning state. Here's what's making headlines. Recently, Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif offered a rather bizarre solution to the country's devastating flood catastrophe. He wants Pakistanis living in the low-lying areas to store the floodwaters in containers rather than letting them flow into drains. Now, he even asked the people to see the flooding as a blessing. Now, we are not surprised by the Pakistan minister's statement, just as we are not surprised by the Pakistan government's complete failure to fix the crisis at hand. But in case Asif needed a reminder, this is what his so-called blessing looks like for the ordinary Pakistanis.
न्यूज़ का चैनल तो बहुत माशाल्लाह अच्छा है ये भाई वाला रात को भी आया
To a Pakistan media outlet, Khwaja Asif reportedly said, I'm quoting, people who are protesting against the flood-like situation should take the flood waters home, quote unquote. Not just that, he went on to add, reportedly quoting here, people should store this water at their homes in tubs and containers. We should look at this water in the form of a blessing and hence should store it, quote unquote. The minister also urged the building of small dams that can be completed quickly instead of waiting 10 to 15 years for mega projects. In his words, quoting, we are letting water go down the drain, we must store it, quote unquote. On the ground, meanwhile, the scale of the disaster is far from a blessing, as you can see. According to Pakistan's own official data, in fact, over 2 million people, more than 2,000 villages have been impacted in Pakistan's Punjab province alone. And as per Pakistan's National Disaster Management Authority, over 850 people have been reported dead. Over 1,000 have been injured nationwide between June 26 and August 31. And the crisis is still unfolding. Officials say the floods are the worst in decades, with major dams near capacity and more rain forecast. Rising water from the Chenab River expected to hit Multan district, merging with inflows from the Ravi. The surging water level at the river Panjnad is expected to peak on September 5. In fact, floodwaters from the Satluj continue to advance towards the critical barrages, including the Sulemanki and Head Islam. Officials cautioning that 2 more days of heavy monsoon rainfall predicted across Punjab could derail the relief operations and push the water levels even higher. The disaster comes at a sensitive point for Pakistan's fragile economy. Inflation had cooled to 4.1% in July from 11.1% a year earlier, and food inflation, which spiked above 50% in 2023, had eased. And now farmers and experts warn that the cost of recovery will run into billions of rupees to rebuild homes and re-establish farms. And if that was not enough, the United Nations has warned that flooded farmlands and the destruction of the ready-to-harvest crops triggered fears of a looming food crisis, along with skyrocketing inflation across the country. And while Pakistan's leaders may offer empty advice in a way, its millions of Pakistani citizens are left, like all other issues in the country, in a way to navigate this crisis all by themselves. And the minister's statement regarding storing water in tubs may sound ridiculous, but it's just a reflection, in a way, of a government more interested in sound bites than actual solutions. China is preparing a massive military parade in Beijing, marking the 80th anniversary of its World War II victory. Beyond the mega extravaganza of the parade itself, the bigger event and its build-up translating into a show of strength that underscores President Xi Jinping's deepening ties with Russia and his push to challenge US dominance.
The Russia-China bonhomie and a strong message for the White House. On the eve of the mega parade, Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin met in Beijing at Xi's home, a special privilege extended to his no limits ally. Russia agreed to supply more natural gas to China and signed a memorandum on the power of the Siberia 2 pipeline. The two also announced a new visa-free travel arrangement for Russian citizens.
The memory of being brothers in arms, trust, mutual assistance, firmness in defending common interests formed the basis of the comprehensive partnership and strategic cooperation between Russia and China in the new era. We were always together then. We remain together now.
China and Russia have remained true to their original aspirations and stayed the course, achieving fruitful cooperation across various fields. China is willing to work together with Russia to support each other's national development and revitalization, firmly uphold fairness and justice, and promote the building of a more just and equitable global governance order.
Beijing is rolling out the red carpet with a strong anti-West flavor likely to take center stage. North Korea's Kim Jong-un is in Beijing. Russia's Vladimir Putin will also be seated next to Xi during the parade. Masoud Pezeshkian from Iran will be there, holds in place for a mega show of unity against the West. The parade is designed to showcase China's military prowess and geopolitical might. The world's second largest active military, with more than 2 million personnel, is holding one of its biggest parades ever. Watchers say the list of weapons to be on display at the parade reflect China's growing ambition to match American military power. All the systems are domestically produced. The parade itself has a reported budget of around $3 billion, roughly 2% of China's annual defense spending. For Xi Jinping, the parade is more than ceremony. Clearly, China seeks to portray itself as an alternative to the American-dominated post-war era. Amid high-stakes negotiations with US President Donald Trump's ambitions over trade and tariffs and potential conflict over Taiwan, this is a show of China's military and diplomatic strength. With a message that anti-West nations are united, confident and prepared to confront pressure from the US and its allies. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Russia is exploring the possibility of building its advanced Su-57 fighter jets on Indian soil, reportedly. As per sources, Russian agencies are calculating the scale of the investment required to establish local manufacturing of the fifth-generation aircraft, reportedly. In fact, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, which already assembles the Su-30 MKI in Nashik, is being considered as a potential production site if the proposal advances. And this comes as India has expressed requirement for at least 2 to 3 squadrons of the fifth-generation fighter jets to strengthen its air power. Defense sources saying concerned Russian agencies are undertaking studies to ascertain the level of investments required for manufacturing the Su-57s in India. It is important to note here that this development comes in the backdrop of Russia pushing India to purchase the Su-57 fighter jets, while India continues discussions on other high-end Russian systems, including the S-400 and the next-generation S-500 air defense platforms. Interestingly, India had earlier partnered in the Russian fifth-generation fighter program, but stepped away nearly a decade ago, reportedly, over concerns related to cost and technology sharing. And sources pointing out that changing global dynamics could reopen the doors for cooperation, reportedly. And the timing is also significant here because America's F-35 remains another strong option for India. But relations with the United States have soured in recent months. The tariffs imposed by the Trump administration, coupled with American criticism of India's purchase of Russian oil, in a way strained ties, and the F-35 Lightning II, developed by Lockheed Martin, is the most exported fifth-generation fighter in history. Over 1,000 units are in service with the U.S. Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, as well as with America's allies like the United Kingdom, Japan, Israel, Italy, South Korea. In contrast, the Sukhoi-manufactured Su-57 emphasizes maneuverability, rugged design, powerful weapon systems, alongside stealth. For smaller nations, the Su-57 is often considered more cost-effective, while the NATO members usually opt for the F-35, to ensure compatibility with their allies. For India, the decision could shape the future of its air combat capabilities and also define the country's broader defense alignment. A fresh magnitude 5.2 earthquake struck eastern Afghanistan, this even as the rescue teams have been racing against time to find survivors after that devastating earthquake struck the region on Sunday, claiming over 1,400 lives. In fact, the magnitude 6 earthquake that injured at least 3,251 people has led to widespread destruction and brought the country to its knees. These images showing the aftermath of the deadly earthquake. People could be seen desperately going through the rubble in search of their loved ones. Afghanistan has long been prone to earthquakes, and this tragedy has left behind a trail of devastation and also fear in the minds of the people. They are requesting the Taliban authorities to provide help to the victims.
The situation is still critical and an emergency. There are still slight tremors from the earthquake. May God grant goodness, but people are in a state of fear. Families have left their homes and gone out into open fields where they have been waiting since last night until now.
Everyone is busy with their own grief. The situation is very bad. In our area, 2-floor, 3-floor, and 4-floor houses have all been destroyed. The deceased whose funeral was held today was my grandson. He died last night.
The United Nations, meanwhile, has warned that the number of people impacted by the devastating earthquake could reach hundreds of thousands. The UN estimates that at least 12,000 Afghans have been directly impacted.
So looking at the stats, looking at the remoteness and the topography, which is extremely challenging and remote, we think potentially the impacted individuals could go up to almost into the hundreds of thousands.
As part of the relief operations, Afghan military helicopters brought aid to the affected villages in the Kunar province and transported injured ones to a nearby hospital. In response to the devastating earthquake in Afghanistan, India has extended humanitarian assistance to the affected country. The Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson shared images on social media of trucks loaded with sacks of rice and other essential food items being dispatched to Afghanistan. Additionally, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar spoke with the Afghan Foreign Minister, conveying condolences for the loss of lives and expressing solidarity with the people of Afghanistan during this challenging time. The United Nations has allocated $5 million from the Central Emergency Response Fund to help victims of the earthquake. And in a statement, it said that the United Nations in Afghanistan will spare no efforts to assist the Afghan people. On to Sudan now. A landslide that struck the Mara Mountains area of western Sudan has killed over 1,000 people. According to the Sudan Liberation Army, the landslide that struck on August 31 after days of heavy rainfall destroyed an entire village, which has been leveled to the ground. It has been touted as one of the deadliest natural disasters that the country has faced in recent times. The rebel group, which controls the affected area located in the Darfur region, has appealed to the United Nations and the international aid agencies to help recover the bodies of the victims. Much of Darfur, remember, remains largely inaccessible to the international aid organizations as the area is fraught with tensions as well. Sudan is also torn by a civil war now in its third year, which has displaced thousands who had sought shelter in Darfur. Parts of the country are also reeling under famine. Since March, when the Sudanese army took control of the capital Khartoum, the fighting with the paramilitary rapid support forces has escalated in North Darfur, killing hundreds in recent months and deepening the humanitarian crisis in the region. On to Vietnam now, which is marking a historic milestone today. Tens of thousands filled the streets of Hanoi as the country celebrated its 80th anniversary of independence from French colonial rule. A massive military parade, being touted as the largest in Vietnam's history, was held, showcasing troops, tanks, fighter jets and warships at a time of growing tensions in the region. Take a look. Monsoon fury continues to wreak havoc in northern parts of India. The scale of the damage is only growing. The relentless downpour triggered floods, waterlogging, landslides in some parts, bringing daily life to a standstill. In Punjab, at least 29 people have lost their lives. More than 2.56 lakh residents have been impacted by the devastating floods there. Crops have been damaged, while the low-lying villages stand inundated. The state government has ordered the closure of all colleges and universities till September 3. Prime Minister Modi, meanwhile, spoke to the Chief Minister and assured him of full support from the centre. Earlier, the Chief Minister visited several flood-affected areas to assess the damage and review the ongoing relief efforts. The Yamuna River is flowing above the danger level after heavy rainfall in the national capital. The traffic and public movement on Delhi's Loha Pul will be stopped from 5 p.m. on Tuesday due to the rising water level. A heavy rain alert has been issued for Delhi. The Delhi government has also issued a flood alert for the Indian capital after a large amount of water released into the Yamuna River from the barrage upstream. Red and orange alerts for heavy rainfall are active meanwhile across Haryana. As per the Met Office in Chandigarh, a red alert is active for Panchkula, Chandigarh, Ambala, Yamunanagar districts, while an orange alert is active for several other districts, including Gurgaon. Heavy rainfall in neighbouring Gurugram also caused major traffic jams, with vehicles stalled in the waterlogged streets. In response to the severe weather conditions, the government has issued a work-from-home advisory to help ease the commuter difficulties and ensure safety. Monsoon season has also left behind a trail of devastation in the state of Himachal Pradesh. Torrential rainfall swelling up the rivers far beyond their banks. Since the monsoon started, relentless downpour and triggered disasters have claimed over 300 lives in the hill state. In Jammu and Kashmir, meanwhile, schools and colleges will remain closed today. Were in fact closed today. Rescuers still trying to clear the boulders and mudslides that have blocked the critical routes. In Ramban, landslides buried stretches of the road under meters of debris, while flash floods in Riyasi inundated the low-lying areas, forcing hundreds to flee their homes overnight. In Uttarakhand, the Chief Minister has warned that the next 24 to 48 hours will be crucial. He said the authorities are relocating the families from the damaged and waterlogged homes to the safer areas, with the disaster response teams working round the clock to minimize the casualties. The United Kingdom, Japan and South Korea sweltered this year through the hottest summer since each country started keeping records. Temperatures the world over have increased in recent years as climate change creates even more erratic weather patterns. The British summer saw 4 heat waves, below average rainfall and sustained sunshine. It followed the country's warmest spring in more than a century. The UK's provisional mean June-August temperature was 16.1 degrees Celsius, which was 1.51 degrees above the long-term average. The Met Office has said that the average temperature surpassed all years since 1884, including the previous record set in 2018.
Oh yeah, I think this year and the recent year, there's many hot weathers, not in UK, but in all over the world. I think we should just pay more attention on the climate change situation, yes.
Japan's average temperature spike was even starker over the same 3 summer months. It was 2.36 degrees Celsius above the standard value, making it the hottest since records started in 1898. The Japan Met Agency has said that it was the 3rd consecutive summer of record high temperatures. According to Japan's Fire and Disaster Management Agency, this year's scorching heat has left some 84,521 people hospitalized nationwide from May 1 to August 24. Experts predicting that even hotter summers are inevitable in the future. Scientists say heat waves are becoming more intense and frequent worldwide because of human-caused climate change.
Urban areas are experiencing so-called heat island effect. That is because of man-made heat from the buildings or automobiles, and also the road or buildings are absorbing heat in the daytime, and it emits radiation, and less and less green areas.
In South Korea, the average June to August temperature was 25.7 degrees Celsius, the highest since data collection started in 1973. The Met administration has said the previous record over the same period was 25.6, set just last year. South Korea is also grappling with a prolonged drought that has hit the eastern coastal city of Gangneung. A state of national disaster has been declared in the city of 200,000 people, with water levels at the Obong Reservoir, the city's main source of piped water, falling below 15%. The dry spell has forced the authorities to implement water restrictions, including shutting off 75% of the household meters. In Copenhagen, a banana has sparked a huge debate. A Danish artist sold her provocative piece titled Equal Satire for nearly $13,000 at Scandinavia's biggest art fair. The artwork, shaped to resemble a vulva, was priced deliberately at 10% of the infamous banana on a wall, highlighting the inequality faced by female artists. Take a look. Are you a people pleaser? What if your chatbot has the same quality? Is your AI chatbot lying to you? Why are these questions even being raised? Let's tell you what a study has found. If chatbots are an important part of your life, this matters. According to the study from Princeton University, reportedly, large language models, like those used in AI chatbots, are increasingly prioritizing user satisfaction over truth. So are chatbots then turning people pleasers? And how does this even happen? There's also the question of how and why generative AI models often end up getting things wrong. You must have heard of the phrase, the customer is always right. The research basically shows as these systems become more popular, they also end up giving less importance to the truth. And in case you were not aware, the process of training LLMs, the large language models, involves aspects like pre-training, instruction fine-tuning, and reinforcement learning from human feedback. And according to the researchers, reportedly, the root cause of what's at play lies in the reinforcement learning from human feedback. These models try to appease the user, basically triggering an issue where the models give out answers that people will rate highly. Of course, that's tricky because factual answers could suffer. The researchers reportedly proposed a new training method to improve both the user satisfaction and real-world usefulness. The fact is, AI is a double-edged sword, and as chatbots increasingly become a part of people's lives, learning more about them and how they function also becomes all the more important. And there are questions that are bound to surface, including over balancing user satisfaction with truthfulness. Shifting focus for now, sharks may be top predators, but their teeth could be no match for climate change. A new German study warns that rapidly acidifying oceans are corroding shark teeth and threatening their ability to hunt. And with it, the balance of the entire marine ecosystems also has the effects to be borne. Take a look at this report. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. This is me, Molly Gambhir, signing off. Thanks very much for watching. Stay tuned.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION, world is one.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse